There is a moment that a lot of people over the age of 70 know very well. You wake up in the morning, you try to get out of bed, and before your feet even hit the floor, your body reminds you that something is different than it used to be. Your ankles feel thick. Your knees feel like they are wrapped in wet sand. Your fingers are stiff and slow to open. And somewhere in your back, there is a dull, nagging ache that was not there 10 years ago. Most people accept this as just getting older. They take it as the price of living a long life. But what if I told you that a 93-year-old woman I interviewed last year gets out of bed every morning without any of that? No swelling, no stiffness, no joint pain. She moves through her kitchen making breakfast the same way she did at 60. And when I asked her what her secret was, she did not tell me about a doctor, a medication, or a fancy supplement. She walked over to her pantry and started pointing at food. That conversation changed everything I thought I knew about inflammation and aging. And today, I am going to share every piece of it with you. Welcome, and if you are new here, I am genuinely glad you found this channel. At Dr. Alex Morgan Aging Wellness Lab, we spend our time doing one thing: taking the most current and most credible science on aging and translating it into real, practical information that you can actually use. No fluff, no sales pitch, just the truth. Hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss a video, because what we cover here could genuinely change the quality of the years ahead of you. Now let us get into this, because what I have to share today is something I feel strongly about. The word inflammation gets thrown around a lot in health content, but most people do not truly understand what it is or why it matters so deeply in the context of aging. So let me explain it in a way that actually sticks. Think of your immune system like a fire department. When there is a real fire, an infection, an injury, a virus, the fire department shows up fast, puts out the fire, and goes home. That is healthy, acute inflammation. It is your body doing exactly what it is supposed to do. The problem happens when the fire department starts showing up even when there is no fire. Day after day, they are running through your streets, spraying water on buildings that are perfectly fine, damaging the infrastructure over time. That is chronic inflammation. It is your immune system running on low alert constantly, and instead of protecting you, it is slowly breaking things down. Your joints, your blood vessels, your brain tissue, your organs. Research from the National Institute on Aging has found that this state of chronic low-grade inflammation, which scientists now call inflammaging, is one of the primary biological mechanisms behind virtually every major age-related condition. Swelling in the joints, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, fatigue, even depression. All of it has chronic inflammation sitting at the root. And here is what makes this so important for people over 70, 80, and 90. The older we get, the more vulnerable our bodies become to this process. The natural anti-inflammatory mechanisms that kept us balanced when we were younger start to slow down. The microbiome shifts. Hormonal changes alter immune signaling. The gut lining becomes more permeable, allowing inflammatory compounds to enter the bloodstream more easily. It is a cascade of changes, and the standard Western diet, heavy in processed foods, refined sugars, and industrial seed oils, pours fuel on every single one of those fires. But the extraordinary thing, and the thing I want you to hold on to through this entire video, is that food can also do the opposite. The right foods do not just stop adding fuel to the fire, they actively help put it out. They contain specific compounds that interfere with the inflammatory pathways in your body, support the microbiome, strengthen the gut lining, and give your immune system the raw materials it needs to regulate itself properly. I have seen this play out in the research, and I have seen it play out in real people. Today, we are talking about 8 specific everyday foods that do exactly this, and the evidence behind each of them is genuinely remarkable. The first food is one that most people have in their kitchen right now, but probably do not think of as medicine, and that is tart cherries. Not the sweet maraschino cherries in a jar, not cherry-flavored candy. Actual tart cherries, either fresh, frozen, or as 100% tart cherry juice with no added sugar. Tart cherries contain one of the highest concentrations of anthocyanins of any food on Earth. Anthocyanins are the pigments that give them their deep red color, and they are also extraordinarily powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compounds. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition found that older adults who consumed tart cherry juice twice daily for 12 weeks showed significant reductions in inflammatory markers, specifically CRP, which stands for C-reactive protein, and is one of the primary blood markers used to measure systemic inflammation. Another study from the Oregon Health and Science University found that marathon runners who drank tart cherry juice in the days before and after a race experienced dramatically less muscle inflammation and faster recovery than those who did not. Now you might think, well, I am not running marathons. But your body experiences a version of that same oxidative damage and inflammatory response every single day just from normal cellular activity. And it gets more pronounced with age. Tart cherry juice or frozen tart cherries added to a morning smoothie is one of the simplest, most evidence-backed things you can add to your diet today. The 93-year-old woman I mentioned earlier drinks half a cup of tart cherry juice every morning. She has done it for years without knowing there was research behind it. She just knew it made her feel better. The second food is ginger. Fresh ginger root, not ginger-flavored cookies, not ginger ale, actual fresh or dried ginger used in cooking or steeped in hot water as a tea. Ginger has been used as medicine in Asian and South Asian cultures for thousands of years, and modern science has spent several decades confirming what those cultures understood intuitively. The primary active compounds in ginger are called gingerols and shogalls, and they work by blocking the production of prostaglandins and leukotrienes, two of the main chemical messengers your immune system uses to trigger and sustain inflammatory responses. A clinical trial published in Arthritis and Rheumatism found that highly concentrated ginger extract significantly reduced knee pain and swelling in patients with osteoarthritis, with over 60% of participants reporting measurable improvement. For comparison, the standard over-the-counter anti-inflammatory medications come with a list of side effects as long as your arm, including gastrointestinal damage, increased cardiovascular risk, and kidney strain, especially in older adults. Fresh ginger added to food, tea, or even just steeped in hot water has none of those risks and delivers meaningful benefits. I have been telling people at Dr. Alex Morgan Aging Wellness Lab for years to start their morning with a mug of hot water, fresh ginger, a squeeze of lemon, and a small pinch of turmeric. People who have made this one simple swap consistently report reduced joint stiffness, better digestion, and clearer energy within a few weeks. Which brings me perfectly to the third food, turmeric. I know. You have heard about turmeric before, but I want to go deeper than the surface level here because most people are not using it in a way that actually works. The active compound in turmeric is curcumin, and it is one of the most extensively studied natural anti-inflammatory compounds in the world. The challenge is that curcumin has poor bioavailability on its own, meaning your body does not absorb it very efficiently when you eat turmeric alone. However, combining turmeric with black pepper, specifically the piperine compound in black pepper, increases curcumin absorption by up to 1,980%. That is not a typo. Nearly 2,000%. This is something traditional Indian and South Asian cooking figured out centuries ago. Curry blends almost always include both turmeric and black pepper together. The wisdom was there long before the biochemistry was understood. Beyond that, consuming turmeric with a small amount of healthy fat, like olive oil or avocado, further enhances absorption because curcumin is fat-soluble. So the combination of turmeric, black pepper, and a healthy fat in your cooking is not just flavor, it is a delivery system for one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds available to us. Research has shown curcumin to be effective in reducing inflammatory markers associated with arthritis, metabolic syndrome, and even neuroinflammation, the type of inflammation increasingly linked to Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. The fourth food is one that I find most people are either eating too little of or eating the wrong kind of, and that is fatty fish. Specifically wild-caught salmon, sardines, mackerel, and anchovies. The reason these fish are so powerful is their concentration of long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA. These are not optional nutrients for aging adults. They are critically important. Your body cannot produce them on its own in meaningful quantities, so they must come from food. EPA and DHA are direct precursors to compounds called resolvins and protectins, molecules your body produces specifically to resolve and turn off inflammatory processes. When you are deficient in omega-3s, as the majority of older Americans are, your body loses a key part of its ability to down-regulate inflammation once it starts. The fire department analogy I used earlier is apt here too. EPA and DHA are essentially what signal the fire department to go home once the job is done. Without enough of them, the response just keeps running. Research from Harvard Medical School has linked higher omega-3 intake in older adults to reduce joint pain, lower rates of cognitive decline, decreased risk of cardiovascular events, and measurably lower levels of systemic inflammatory markers. Sardines in particular are extraordinary. They are cheap, widely available, have a very low mercury content because they are small and low on the food chain. And a single serving delivers a significant omega-3 dose along with calcium, vitamin D, and B12. If you can eat fatty fish 2 to 3 times per week, you will be doing something genuinely powerful for your body's ability to regulate inflammation. The fifth food is one that has been sitting in grocery stores and farmers markets for decades without getting nearly the credit it deserves, and that is beets. Specifically, whole beets. Roasted, steamed, raw in a salad, or as plain beet juice without added sugar. Beets contain a unique class of compounds called betalains, which are responsible for their deep red and purple color and which have demonstrated impressive anti-inflammatory effects in clinical studies. But beyond betalains, beets are one of the richest dietary sources of natural nitrates, which your body converts to nitric oxide. And here is why that matters so much for people dealing with swelling and inflammation in the limbs. Nitric oxide causes blood vessels to relax and widen, improving circulation throughout the body. Poor circulation is a major driver of peripheral swelling, the kind you see in ankles, feet, and lower legs. When blood flow is sluggish, fluid accumulates in the tissues. Improving circulation with nitric oxide boosting foods like beets directly addresses this mechanism. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that beet juice consumption significantly improved blood flow and reduced blood pressure in older adults within just a few hours of consumption. Consistent use over time produced cumulative benefits. One of the most common pieces of feedback I receive from people who have added beets to their regular diet is that the puffiness in their lower legs and feet noticeably decreases within a few weeks. That is not anecdotal noise. That is exactly what the physiology predicts. The sixth food is something that may surprise you because it does not fit the typical image of a health food, and that is bone broth. Slow simmered, traditionally made bone broth from high quality animal bones. The reason bone broth matters for inflammation and swelling specifically is the extraordinary concentration of gelatin, collagen peptides, glycine, and proline it contains. These are the building blocks of connective tissue: cartilage, tendons, ligaments, and the lining of the gut. As we age, our own collagen production declines significantly. The joints that once cushioned our movements start to thin and roughen. The gut lining that once formed a tight barrier against inflammatory compounds starts to develop microscopic gaps, what researchers call increased intestinal permeability. When this happens, bacterial toxins and partially digested food particles can enter the bloodstream and trigger systemic immune responses. In other words, a leaky gut is literally a source of chronic inflammation throughout the body. The gelatin and glycine in bone broth have been shown to help repair and strengthen the gut lining, directly reducing this source of systemic inflammation. Additionally, the collagen peptides deliver the raw materials needed for joint cartilage repair. A study published in the journal Nutrients found that collagen peptide supplementation significantly reduced joint pain and improved mobility in older adults with knee osteoarthritis over a 12-week period. Bone broth provides all of this in a warm, easily digestible, deeply nourishing form. Sipping a mug of bone broth in the morning or using it as a base for soups and stews is one of the most time-tested practices for joint and gut health across dozens of cultures. And modern science is finally catching up to understanding exactly why it works. The seventh food is dark leafy greens, and I want to make a specific case here beyond the general nutritional praise they typically receive. Spinach, Swiss chard, kale, dandelion greens, and beet greens specifically contain a compound called quercetin, along with vitamin K1, magnesium, and folate, a combination that works synergistically against inflammation in multiple pathways simultaneously. Quercetin in particular has been shown in research to inhibit the release of histamine and other inflammatory signaling molecules from immune cells. It also blocks an enzyme called lipoxygenase, which plays a major role in producing inflammatory leukotrienes, the same compounds that ginger targets. Magnesium is critically important here too because magnesium deficiency, which is extremely common in older adults due to decreased absorption and often inadequate dietary intake, is directly associated with elevated inflammatory markers and increased risk of cardiovascular disease. Dark leafy greens are one of the best dietary sources of magnesium available, and vitamin K1 plays a specific role in reducing vascular inflammation by activating proteins that prevent calcium from depositing in arterial walls. For older adults dealing with joint swelling and general systemic inflammation, eating a generous serving of cooked or raw dark leafy greens every single day is one of the most impactful and accessible dietary changes available. The key word is generous, not a garnish, not a few leaves on the side. A real substantial serving at least once a day. The eighth food, and I have saved this one for last because I think it ties everything together in a remarkable way, is plain fermented yogurt with live active cultures. Not flavored yogurt, not yogurt drinks, not frozen yogurt. Plain, full-fat or low-fat yogurt from a reputable source that clearly states it contains live and active cultures. The reason this belongs on this list is the microbiome, and specifically the gut-immune connection that researchers have spent the last decade unraveling. Approximately 70% of your immune system is housed in and around your gut. The composition of your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your digestive tract, has a direct and profound influence on how your immune system behaves, including how much inflammation it generates. Studies comparing the gut microbiomes of people with high levels of chronic inflammation to those with low levels consistently find that the low inflammation group has more diverse, more abundant populations of beneficial bacteria. One of the most effective ways to support those beneficial bacteria is through regular consumption of fermented foods that deliver live cultures directly into the gut. A landmark clinical trial from Stanford University found that a diet high in fermented foods over a 10-week period produced measurable increases in microbiome diversity and significant decreases in 19 different inflammatory markers across the board, not just in selected individuals. The researchers were genuinely surprised by how consistent the effect was. Plain yogurt is the most accessible, widely available, affordable fermented food in most American households. 1 cup per day, ideally at the same time each day, is enough to begin producing meaningful shifts in the microbiome over weeks and months. Now, I want to bring all of this together in a way that is practical and actionable because I know that a list of 8 foods can feel overwhelming if you try to change everything at once. The approach that works, and that I have seen produce real results in the people we work with at Dr. Alex Morgan Aging Wellness Lab, is layering. Start with 2. Pick the 2 foods from this list that feel the most accessible to you right now and simply add them to what you are already eating. Do not take anything away yet. Just add. After 2 or 3 weeks, when those 2 feel natural, add another 1 or 2. Within 2 to 3 months, most people have naturally incorporated all 8 without feeling like they are on any kind of special diet. And the cumulative effect of all 8 working together in the same body over time is significantly greater than any single one of them in isolation. That is what synergy means in the context of nutrition, when the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. There's also something I want to say about the psychology of this, because it matters more than most nutrition science acknowledges. The people I have studied who successfully reduce their inflammation and maintain that reduction long-term are not doing it through willpower and restriction. They are doing it through abundance. They shifted their focus from what they cannot eat to what they are actively choosing to eat for a reason. When food becomes purposeful, when you know that the ginger in your tea is calming down an inflammatory pathway in your joints, or that the sardines you are eating are giving your immune system the tools it needs to regulate itself, the motivation to keep doing it comes from a completely different place. It comes from understanding and intention, not from fear or obligation. That shift is subtle, but in practice it makes all the difference between a change that lasts 2 weeks and one that lasts a lifetime. I also want to address the relationship between these foods and medications because I know many of the people watching this are managing health conditions and taking prescribed drugs. Nothing in this video is a replacement for your doctor's guidance. The foods I have described are safe, evidence-backed additions to your diet, not substitutions for medical care. However, I will say this. I have seen blood work change in meaningful ways when people consistently adopt anti-inflammatory eating patterns. Inflammatory markers come down, cholesterol profiles improve, blood sugar stabilizes. These are measurable, documented changes that your doctor can track with you over time. Food works slowly compared to medication, but the changes it creates tend to be more durable and come without the side effect profiles that many anti-inflammatory drugs carry. Talk to your physician about tracking your CRP levels and other inflammatory markers over time as you make dietary changes. Give it 90 days of consistency and see what the numbers say. Let the evidence guide you. Before I let you go today, I want to come back to that 93-year-old woman I mentioned at the very beginning. Because after our conversation, I asked her the question I always ask the oldest, healthiest people I meet. I asked her if she was afraid of getting older. She looked at me for a moment, kind of tilted her head, and then she said something I have thought about almost every day since. She said she used to be afraid of getting older, but she stopped being afraid when she realized that most of what she feared was not inevitable. She said she had watched neighbors and friends suffer from things that she genuinely believed had more to do with how they ate and lived than with how old they were. And she decided somewhere in her late 60s that she was going to feed her body like it deserved to keep going. That choice, made decades ago, is why she is still making her own breakfast at 93. That story, to me, is the entire point. If this video gave you something real today, a new idea, a piece of science you had not heard before, or just a reason to look at the food in your kitchen differently, please leave a comment below and tell me which of these 8 foods you are most excited to start adding to your routine. Or share your own experience if you have already been eating any of these and noticed a difference. I read every comment, and I genuinely love hearing from this community. And if you know someone in their 70s, 80s, or 90s who is dealing with swelling, joint pain, or just lower energy than they want, please share this video with them. It takes 5 seconds, and it could genuinely be something that changes how they feel over the next few months. That is exactly why we do this here at Dr. Alex Morgan Aging Wellness Lab. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.